For those of you who don't know me, I just want to briefly introduce myself. My name's Kim, and I have been the care partner for my husband for the past 20 plus years. He has ME, CFS, and very, very debilitating illness with no cure. When we first met, it was more on the mild side. We could even go salsa dancing together, but we had to take a break in between songs because I wanted to keep going and he could not because of post-exertional malaise, the fatigue, all of those things. Speed up a few years, we got married, had 2 kids, and all of a sudden his health plummeted. And he's never really quite recovered. He's now slightly better than his worst, but he is spending most of his day in bed. That really made me search for how do I deal with his illness? How do I deal with being his caregiver? Because it became all consuming. I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with that. So I was reading all the books. I was seeing a therapist. I've seen actually a few, more than one, over the years. I worked with coaches. I listened to podcasts. I did all the things to try to figure out how do I deal with this? Because it was quite overwhelming. It was really stressful. And I didn't know anyone else who was in the same boat as me. At the same time, I was also supporting my now late parents through Alzheimer's, while also raising 2 young sons and then working management jobs at different companies. And so I was kind of squeezed in so many different directions. Felt like a pressure cooker situation, not just a sandwich generation kind of thing. And then over 7 years ago, I launched a monthly support group, and I pick a topic each month and talk with other fellow chronic illness caregivers to feel connected and to share, again, lessons that I've learned over the years. And I always learn something new from people who attend. We all connect and help each other out. And then about 3 years ago, I launched Caregiver Wisdom to share lessons I've learned along the way. And I became a board-certified health and wellness coach. So that's just a little bit about me. But let's now talk about what is ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is a form of grief when the person that you love is physically present, yet they may be psychologically changed due to uncertain circumstances. In the case of chronic illness, like ME/CFS, like long COVID, even Alzheimer's, and many other kinds of debilitating illnesses, this manifests as a profound sense of loss, even though your loved one is still alive. And unlike traditional bereavement, where someone has passed away, ambiguous loss lacks closure. And in chronic illness in particular, it's the ongoing nature of this illness, and especially there's ups and downs, like with ME/CFS and long COVID, and this can leave you in a state of being constantly up and down, right? You're in ongoing limbo. Oh, slightly getting better. Oh, getting worse. Getting better, getting worse. Or maybe it's stagnant and it's not getting better at all, which has been our case for a while. So what happens to not just the person with the illness, but also the family caregiver like ourselves, is that this can cause trauma and frozen grief. So caregivers have to shoulder this emotional burden of witnessing our loved one's struggles. And we also mourn many kinds of losses. So these are personal losses, loss of independence, loss of control, loss of the future as you had imagined it, maybe loss of financial security, maybe the loss of relationship as it once was, loss of freedom, sleep, family harmony, right? There's a lot more stress now in the household. Maybe there's a loss of someone to share chores and other tasks with. I know I certainly feel that every single day. And oftentimes the loss of someone to talk things over with, the companionship, the feeling of having, a best friend there in your family member. Now, people with the illness also have these losses, and then they have additional struggles, of course. There's this constant state of uncertainty, and in fact, you could say that's true for the family caregiver as well. There's a loss of their former selves, perhaps a loss of dignity and independence, right? Loss of mobility, other physical limitations, a loss of the roles that they had played, and sometimes a loss of self-worth. So what I'm trying to also articulate is that it's easy to ignore these losses and these griefs and just keep on going because so many things need to be done. And I've been there. And there are many times over the years where I'm like, okay, just nose to the grindstone. I got to get all this stuff done. I had to, call the doctor's appointments, fill the medications and supplements, and I had to get the wheelchair and all of these things, right? Let alone the household chores. So we don't have time sometimes to acknowledge this grief, our losses. I just want to tell you it is important to acknowledge these losses. These losses can lead to grief, which can lead to sadness, depression, anger, guilt, frustration, a sense of helplessness. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping. Can cause a host of other physical and emotional problems. So it's really important to identify our losses and our feelings and to let ourselves grieve. Okay. And when we do this, our feelings will be less likely to erupt as angry outbursts weighed down by guilt or creep up on us like depression. And it's also important to not stay in grief for long periods of time. I don't know about you, but I remember that I had this pent-up grief, frustration, anger, stress, anxiety, all of it. I kept it inside. And I just felt like I had to do it all by myself, everything. And I didn't want to bother my loved one with this illness. I didn't want to stress him out even more. He was in high duress. And so I kept it pent up. And then it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. Something would happen, something minor in the family, and then I would burst in big anger and take it out on my family who didn't deserve it. But it's because I had not released all of this pent up emotion. I didn't have time, it felt like at the time. So what is the journey towards healing? For both the ill person and the caregiver, there are two tasks. The first is to grieve the life that the illness has taken away. And importantly, the second is to enjoy the life that still continues. Now, the second part is really hard for most people. And so I want to dig into that a little bit deeper. What I'm going to do now is share with you my top 10 list. I have a top 10 list of strategies for the journey towards healing. It actually requires a multifaceted approach because there are so many things that can be helpful. Okay, it's usually not just one thing, but the more things that you can layer in, the better off you will be. And I want to also note that you never get over this grief, but you can live with it more easily and also experience more joy. So the first tip here, the first strategy is to actually name your real problem. So the real culprit causing your stress is ambiguous loss, and it's caused by an illness. It's neither your fault nor your loved one's. So it's really important to acknowledge your emotions and your right to feel emotionally off balance. It's really okay to grieve these losses that you and your loved one experience. Okay, don't stuff it down like I did, okay? The The second important strategy is to let go of what you cannot control. This is really hard. The idea here is if you can focus on what you control and let go of what you can't, you can actually be at more peace. Okay, instead of you're just going uphill, right? And again, like you're pushing that boulder up the hill. And if you can't let go of what you can't control, you're in a losing battle most of the time. And what a lot of ambiguous loss experts recommend is to find balance through other things. So because it's so hard to restore what has been lost, you might want to look at doing things like prayer, meditation, doing creative activities, having some goal setting around certain projects, right? Maybe exercising. But my favorite thing here that I like to suggest to fellow caregivers is to reflect on the Serenity Prayer. For those of you who don't know it, it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The third strategy is to practice both and thinking. So it really helps to think about both and instead of either or. Now, for a lot of people, this is a little challenging cognitively, right? Because it means balancing two different ideas at the same time. So the beauty of both and thinking is that it's less stressful than continuing to search for an absolutely perfect solution that may not exist. Okay, so examples here. I am both a caregiver and a person with my own needs. I take care of both him and myself. I am both sad at my loved one's illness and joyful that we can watch a sunset together. I am both sad about my lost hopes and dreams and happy about some new plans and goals. Those are some examples of both and thinking. The fourth strategy is to practice non-attachment. So what is non-attachment? It's the ability to live life fully without clinging to impermanent things like material possessions, relationships, thoughts, or emotions. Maybe it's clinging to what your life used to look like. Maybe it's clinging to how your loved one, what they were like when they were healthy. And non-attachment does not mean that we should avoid these things, like we want these things, right? But it's just that we don't become so attached to it that it causes suffering. Because inevitably, everything changes or disappears. Cling to what was, how it used to be, is what keeps your grief frozen. So as you can see in this picture on this slide, you have a leaf. And over time in the fall, it falls from the tree. And here it becomes mottled, right, from age. And so it's different than it used to be. And yet in my eyes, it's still so, so beautiful. That's why I took a picture of it. It's just a different form. And still it can be beautiful. The fifth strategy is to practice radical acceptance. So radical acceptance is related to non-attachment, but specifically radical acceptance is letting go of the need to control, judge, and wish things were different than they are. It means to accept the facts of reality. It is what it is. So example is you might want to find a new reality in your relationship with your loved one. You may find that you are so focused on your caregiving role more than your role as a partner, a parent, family member, or friend. I know that happens to me all the time. So you want to be the first, right? It's very normal because being a caregiver takes so much, right? But I think you may want to consider asking yourself, what can you do to accept your loved one as they are right now, instead of wishing that they were like they used to be? How can you resist the urge to compare past versions of them to who they are today? Accept them for who they are now. They're right in front of you now. What moments can still make us laugh and smile together? So these are questions for you to reflect on. The sixth strategy is to check on your own health. 23% of caregivers have difficulty in caring for their own health because of caregiving. How many of us have put off going to the doctors for ourselves? I know I've been there, right? It's really important to seek professional help also if you're feeling depressed, physically sick, or hopeless. Obviously, if you're depending on alcohol or drugs to keep you afloat, definitely seek professional help, right? And really, warning sign is when you're no longer taking care of yourself. As a caregiver, I want you to know that you have both a duty and a right to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, the whole family can suffer. When I have fallen apart, and I have, the whole family suffers. What I've shown here on the screen is the wellness wheel. It's a holistic wellness wheel, and I do a workshop on this in my group course, as well as I think I've done it for my support groups, usually in January, good time of year to think about measuring your own wellness. And there's more than just physical wellness. There's actually, on here, we have 8 different kinds. So we don't have time to get in that today, but I encourage you to think about assessing your own wellness, because it makes a difference to the person who's being cared for too. The 7th that's related here is to actually practice self-care. And I put regularly. It's easy to say we'll practice self-care when we have time, but you cannot wait until you have time. You have to make the time to do this regularly. It's maintenance, okay? If you are running on empty, you have nothing left to give. And I've been there where I've been running on fumes, and actually causes harm to your family. You may want to consider instead bite-sized physical, emotional, spiritual self-care practices, and consider making them daily healthy habits. You also want to set boundaries so you can make time for these activities that bring you joy, and you can find moments of respite. And again, remember that caring for yourself is not selfish. It is really necessary for your own well-being, and you deserve that as a human being, and your ability to support your family. The 8th strategy is really important as well, and that's self-compassion. What is self-compassion? It's really when you treat yourself like you would treat a good friend. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of caregivers have negative self-talk because we're like, oh, we didn't do all the things. Oh, I didn't do that right. Oh, I'm behind. I have this long list of things to do, right? Instead of shooting on yourself, why not give yourself some positive, supportive self-talk like you would to a good friend, right? It can go something like, oh, yeah, I have a long laundry list of things to do, and I did 5 really good things today. I'm so proud of myself. I took care of those things I really didn't want to do, and I got them done. Maybe it's 3 things. Maybe it's 1 thing, okay? I highly recommend looking into trying some self-compassion practices. Again, we won't have time today to go in depth into any of these practices, but those are things that, again, I can share in a group course. There's things you can Google too. But self-compassion is crucial for caregivers, not only because it helps us forgive ourselves for inevitable mistakes, but also because it allows us to acknowledge and comfort ourselves for the difficulties of our caregiving role. And this is from a quote from Dr. Kristen Neff, who's an expert in self-compassion, and she's a caregiver herself. I also want to mention that self-compassion is linked to an increase in resilience, and it also lowers anxiety, depression, and stress. So strategy number 9 is to consider practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness can really help us stay present and manage overwhelming emotions. There are many research studies showing that it can help lessen stress, anxiety, and improve your overall quality of life. And so there are many mindfulness activities. There is slow, deep belly breathing, which I have taught both in my support group meetings as well as in my group courses. I find this foundational. Everyone who has gone through some of my group courses say that's one of their most favorite things that they have learned. It is really grounding and nourishing. It helps you go through stressful times, both as a maintenance thing that you do on a daily basis and also in the moment. So highly recommended tool that you can use in your everyday life. It definitely promotes a sense of calm and acceptance. Number 10 is to engage in support groups and online communities and coming to workshops like this one here, where you can connect with others who understand the challenges of caregiving and ambiguous loss. So when we share our experiences, we can also seek advice and share what has worked for us. Finding empathy in a supportive community can really help provide comfort and validation. Especially when you're dealing with illnesses that are not well understood, you may feel a little more isolated than other people. I mean, caregivers in general already feel isolated, but then on top of it, when you're dealing with chronic illnesses that are not well understood, it becomes even more isolating. So really seeking the support and connection has been super helpful for me, and I know many others.